Okay, so good morning, everyone. My name is Maria Diaz. I am the Executive Director of the Greenwich Village Chelsea Chamber of Commerce. I'm excited to have you all with us today as we give, I'm going to be multitasking. I have to let people in the room. I'm excited to have you all with us as we explain the ins and outs of PPP loan forgiveness, and we're excited to have two advisors with us, both Elaine Powell Bell Navis and Glamis Harrow. And before I give a full introduction, a better introduction on them, I'll talk a little bit about the chamber. Our chamber has been in existence since for over 70 years, helping the businesses of our footprint. Our footprint covers from Canal Street up to 34th Street. We help our businesses through educational programs, through marketing campaigns, through advocacy, working with our elected official, and through promotion. We are working on several projects right now, mostly to help all of our businesses recuperate from this global pandemic. And if you are not a member of the chamber, please do remember that by attending this event and joining today, you are able to save $50 off of your application fee. So please do reach out to us. I'll put a link throughout the presentation in the chat to see if it's to hopefully encourage all of you to join our chamber. We're a close-knit network of businesses in the area. With that said, I want to just give a one-liner, about 1 to 2 lines about our presenters today. We have with us Glamis Harrow, who is from the Columbia Business School, SBDC. She is actually the best advised, has been ranked the best advisor by the SBA since 2016 in all of New York State. And then we also have Elaine, who is an economic development specialist. And let me get this right. Is an economic development specialist with the U.S. Business Administration, or the SBA, from the New York District Office. She helps advise on the various programs that SBA offers and works with small businesses all the time. So with that said, I'm going to, Elaine, do you want to kick it off and then pass it over to Glamis?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Thank you, Maria, and thank you for the Greenwich Village Chelsea Chamber that has allowed us this platform. I'm here with one of our resource partners, which is from Columbia University, Glamis. You will be hearing from her shortly. But I just wanted to let you know some things about the SBA. Now, the Small Business Administration, we've been around since 1953. We were signed into law under President Dwight David Eisenhower, who is the 34th president of the United States, or was the 34th president of the United States of America. And the SBA was put into, signed into law to help individuals start, grow, and expand a business. Now, to date, statistically, there are 30.2 million small businesses in the United States. After the pandemic, when we count, we'll see where we are, because we know that definitely small businesses was affected. The SBA has done all kinds of things, especially injecting finances into the economy to keep small businesses afloat. We've done the PPP program, which of course we will be talking, Glamis will be going into detail, talking about how that loan, if you made that loan, you must ask that that loan be forgiven or it will become a loan. It is a loan that is a forgivable loan. It was not something that we've ever done before, but this is a pandemic that we've never had before. So at the SBA, we wanted to make sure that you understood that the loan can be forgivable and that you do the appropriate things that you need to do in order to get that loan forgiven. Because if it's not, it will carry on our books and it would indicate that you owe the Small Business Administration money. And we don't want that to happen. So we thought it would be not robbery to ask the Greenwich Village Chelsea Chamber to put this program on to talk about PPP forgiveness. We want you to thoroughly understand how to ask for it and what you're supposed to do, your obligation with regard to this. You've gotten the money, you used the money. Now you're going to have to, this is a step that you're going to have to take. We can't take this step for you. With that, because Glamis has something else that she has to do, I want to thank her very much for taking the time out of her day to come to do this with us today. I'm going to put her up. I want you guys to have enough time to ask your questions. So I don't want to spend a whole bunch of time here talking about the SBA, but please go to our website, www.sba.gov. There's a litany of programs and services on that website, and it is a great website for anyone who's interested in starting, growing, or expanding a business. With that, I'm going to throw this over to Glamis from the Columbia SBDC, who is an advisor over there, as Maria said, one of the #1 advisors in the nation. So what we're going to do is we're going to let her come on, and this way you can get the information you need and then have an opportunity to ask her question. With that said, Glamis, you got the platform. You're muted.
Give me 1 second.
Clement's got to get herself together. She's so fucking serious.
You're not muted.
There you go. Yes, I am very serious. Good morning, everybody. So I'm happy to be here today. Thank you, Maria and Elaine, for inviting me to be here this early. It's my first this early. I have been teaching classes in workshops at the business school through the community this early, but it's the first time in a chamber or in a different forum. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm gonna share my screen now. Okay, so my name is Glamis Haro again. At Columbia University Small Business Development Center as the Senior Business Advisor. You have my email there, so please free to copy it in case you have additional questions. Our time is kind of limited today. So I would like to tell you a little bit about my center as well. You know, the Columbia University Small Business Development Center, in case you don't know, is in Harlem as part of the business school, where we offer high quality programs to New Yorkers who want to improve the performance of an existing business, entrepreneurs who want to start a business, expand or exit their business. We provide one-on-one business coaching and training at no cost to you. And we are one of the 7 centers in New York City, one of the 24 centers in New York State, and one of the 900 plus centers nationwide. So here's where we start. And I will tell you that you got your PPP, now you need to get it forgiven, right? So if you got your PPP, is because you had an obligation. After you prove that you had an obligation, then you pay that obligation. After that, now you need to justify that you have had obligation and that you have paid that obligation. How do you prove that? We're gonna get through the class today, and so you can learn how to comply with this beautiful arrow that I did for you. In order to have your PPP loan forgiven 100%, think in this manner. We need to remember that the rules change, often creating confusion and stress not only to you, but also to me as an advisor. According to the new rules, you only must spend 60% of the PPP loan on payroll costs versus 75% that it was before, right? And to potentially qualify for 100% forgiveness. Remember also that the goal is to have 100% of the loan forgiven, regardless of whether you choose an 8-week or 24-week covered period, but using a 24-week covered period may help you meet the 60% needed if you wouldn't be able to do so in 8 weeks. With this regulation change, it gives you, the entrepreneur, more time to plan and make well-informed decisions about how to file for loan forgiveness. There are also some considerations. The first consideration is timing. To be eligible for forgiveness, payroll cost must be incurred or paid during the covered period or alternative payroll covered period. Incurred during the covered period or alternative payroll covered period, but paid during the covered period or alternative payroll covered period. This is like a twist tongue. Is the regulation, is coming directly from the regulation, so it kind of gets confusing, and I will explain to you what it means as we go. And the last twisted tongue is incurred during the covered period or alternative payroll covered period, but pay on or before the next regular payroll date after the covered period or the alternative payroll covered period. Just in short, I can say CP for covered period or APCP. They're both confusing, but you have to get used to this type of language. So let me go to the next slide. So PPP loan forgiveness, the basics. Most of these things you probably have already heard or you probably already know, okay? I'm just going to refresh it and try to make it easier for everybody to understand that this is not complicated at all. So in this category, I have grouped expenses allowed to be forgiven in groups. And the first group is salary, which is part of wages, commissions, or similar compensation, cash tips or equivalent, vacation, parental, family, medical, or sick leave expenses, allowance for separation or dismissal expense, and this is for employees, bonuses paid, hazardous pay, and also includes some employee benefits such as group healthcare coverage, retirement expense or contributions, state and local employment taxes, independent contractors or sole proprietors plus wages, commissions income, net earnings from self-employment or similar compensation. There are also some in the other group, there are some non-payroll costs, and these are maximum up to 40% of the loan proceeds. So interest on mortgages is one expense, obligations for real and personal property that were in place before February 15, 2020. Remember when I say timing is important, and this is the date that you need to remember, February 15, 2020. Interest on unsecured credit card debt is not eligible. Okay, so there are some confusion, and this is by experience. Some of my clients use credit card debt and or personal credit card debt as a business expense, and even though the expense were for business purposes in your personal side, it's not gonna be deductible. So non-payroll costs up to a maximum of 40%, okay? So there are also group of expenses that is allowed, which is utilities. And utilities can be electricity expense, gas, water, telephone, internet access. And the other group is non-payroll costs, such as operational expenses. Some operational expenses can be deducted as well, like property damage cost that was not covered by any insurance or other compensation. Supplier costs, workers' protection expenditures, such as PPE. There are also some additional considerations to remember. You have to be able to prove that salary or wages reduction is not more than 25% during the covered period compared with 2019 taxes. The timeline, I'll explain to you how once you submit the application, this loan is going, or your request is going to be forgiven. First, the forgiveness process is done in 4 steps. A borrower, you submit a PPP loan forgiveness application through the SBA form 3508, 3508EZ, or 3508S. I'll explain when and which one applies to, or equivalent form and required documents by your bank. So you submit this request with the documentation to your bank. The bank later reviews and decides within 60 days from the receipt of the complete package from you and submits for decision at the SBA. After, the SBA responds back to the bank, to the lender, within 90 days. After that, the lender notifies you of the forgiveness amount, of the forgiven amount. And any remaining balance after the forgiveness, it must be repaid by the borrower on or before the maturity date. There is no need to submit payments until the SBA remits the approved loan forgiveness amount to your bank, or notifies the lender that no loan forgiveness is allowed. In short, you have 16 months since the date you received the funds to start making payments. But you must start the process after 10 months, because now we know that it may take a little bit more than 90 days to have your loan forgiven. So if you have submitted your loan for your forgiveness loan application to your bank, please don't call your advisor or don't call me asking why you haven't heard anything, because there is a timeline, right? And now you have the dates and the time that may take each institution to do their work. Now, remember that for PPP funds disbursed on or after June 11, 2020, there is some flexibility allowed to the Flexibility Act passed on June 11, 2020. Remember that the maximum payroll cost per employee is $15,000, 385. Please write this down. $15,000, 385 for 8-week pay period, or 46,154 for 24-week period. I'm going to say it again so you can write it down. So you must remember that the payroll cost per employee should not be more than 15,385 if you take the 8-week pay period, or 46,154 if you decide to take, that is best for you, the 24-week election. Also, the maximum payroll cost per employee or self-employed person for an 8-week period, the lower of $15,000, 385. $15,000, 385 if you are self-employed. Or you take the percentage, which is 15.38%, and this has to be compared with taxes done during 2019. If you elect the 24-week period, then the maximum amount per employee is $20,833. $20,833. This also has to be compared with the average tax filed of 2019. Or then you multiply your average, if you're self-employed, your average payment, multiply it by 12, and divided by 2.5, that will be the amount that you will have, you will ask your bank to forgive it. Again, you are not required to make payments on loan until SBA remits the guarantee money to your lender, or SBA notifies your bank that your loan has been forgiven or has not been forgiven. So the deferred period is in general is 10 months. So just for you to take in consideration. So how many days is this? So if you take the 8-week cover period, is 56 days. If you take the 24-week cover period, is 168 days. Okay, so the numbers are down for you, just write it down. So in days, in weeks, and the equivalence, right? So there are forms, right, that I will explain to you as we go. And for these, the documentation is super important. And as I said in my first slide, you had an obligation, you paid that obligation, now prove that you have paid that obligation in addition to any of the forms that you elect to submit to your lender. So next, we're going to be talking about that. What's the alternative payroll cover period? Is the 24-week election. That's all. The alternative payroll cover period is the election of 24 weeks, and that was the change, the big change that was made, right? If compared with the first draw PPP. For this documentation, I need you to think back to February 15, 2020. Okay, let's go back to February 15, 2020, before the pandemic. Pretty much, you need to prove that the expenses that you're deducting were already incurred on or before February 15, 2020. So how do you organize this? What I have been telling my clients is that you have to create a folder. And for example, if you're gonna deduct internet expense, you're gonna start with your January internet expense bill. And then you're gonna label and save the bill for that expense starting January, February, March, and so on. Okay, so that's a way how you're going to be able to justify, prove that this expense was in existence before or on February 15, 2020. So you go back to 2020 and start piling up those bills, save it in a folder, label it correctly, because when you submit it, when you submit this documentation to the lender, you're just gonna upload. The more, the better. Okay, that's how you prove that this expense has been in existence previous to the pandemic. So then you have other expenses, right, which are necessary once the pandemic was in effect. And then you have other expenses such as PPE. You have to show the receipt of the purchases, or if you have built out outside sitting space, you have to save those receipts as well, because that is an expense that can be deducted. Or if your storefront was damaged due to vandalism or things that happened during last year, also you need to have all those receipts, as proof that happened. And that is one of the other expenses allowed to be deducted. So the requirement is, in other words, the requirement is that you prove that expenses were already in place on or before this date. To justify, put all the receipts, rent, utilities, all the groups that I mentioned in a folder, okay? And then if you need additional, for example, proof that your bank will let you know, so then you go to your bank account statements or third-party payroll services provider and get those reports. You can also submit your tax forms and the receipts that I just listed and explain to you how can you prove that these expenses were in effect previous to February 15, 2020. Then you have, again, to have this money forgiven 100%, think like an auditor. And if you remember my first slide, you have an obligation, you pay that obligation, and now prove that you have paid. Now back it up with documentation. So now the lender reviews your loan forgiven request and makes a decision. And decision is making in a few steps, right? Or options. The steps are I already explained to you, but you can get a notice that your loan is approved in full. It means that the lender approves the full forgiveness amount requested by you and the forgiveness amount requested by your lender to the SBA equals to the same amount. Then if you get a notice approved in part, it means that the lender did not approve the full forgiveness amount requested by you and the forgiveness amount decision by your bank is less than the forgiveness amount requested by you. This can happen only because you, the entrepreneur, was not able to justify some expenses according to the selected cover period. So if you forgot to prove what I just said before, go back to February or January 2020 and prove with documentation. That can be a reason why those expenses are not allowed to be deducted. And remember also that any unapproved balance due to the PPP loan must be repaid by you according to the time that the money was disbursed. 2 years if the money was disbursed before June 5th, 2020, and 5 years for a loan disbursed after. Both terms are set with interest rate of 1%. If denied, the lender denied the entire forgiveness amount requested by the borrower. So then if you receive a denied without prejudice notice, when your bank uses this status is when the SBA notifies the bank that the loan review is pending, pending at the time the borrower submits a loan forgiveness application. In a court case, this means that the case is dismissed and do not bring it back to court. In this case, I am not totally sure. Maybe Elaine can help us here. Remember that the entire transaction time is of 90 days until you hear back from the bank, but about any decisions that I just explained to you. Elaine, do you have any comment about this denied without prejudice notice?
No, I think you explained it quite well, Glamis. We're still working on it, you know. There might be something coming out, I would say within the next month or so, that might change some of this. But at this time, you are on point.
Okay. Thank you. So let's go to the forms, right? We have different forms, and one of the forms that we're going to be talking now is the 3508 EZ. Easy does not mean easy. Okay, there are other forms that is easy. Okay, this is not easy. Okay, loan amount is more than $150,000. So just by saying that, you know that it's not easy. It's the loan form, right? Did not reduce any salary or hourly wages by more than 25% during the covered period. So what do I do here? I'm gonna take you to the application. So I'm gonna have to stop sharing. Do you see the application, Elaine? No, I have to go back and share again the screen so I can share the appropriate screen. There you go. Now you can see the application, right?
Yes, I can see it, Gladys.
Okay, great. So this is the application, and the first part of the application, remember, you have to pull this application, the 3508 EZ revised January 19, 2021, and that expires in September 30, 2021. There have been problems with the applications because the information when you apply for the PPP does not correspond with the information that you're putting into the loan forgiveness. And this information has to match and has to be accurate. The business legal name, if you're doing a DBA, if you're operating your business with a DBA, make sure you put the DBA as well. The business address, the NAICS code. Please, at this time, since you already applied for PPP, you must know your NAICS code. Raise your hand if you don't know what your NAICS code is. Just go to the actions and raise your hand. If you know, just give me thumbs up.
You can also put it in the chat.
Or put it in the chat.
Leslie does not.
You don't know. Okay. So the North America Industry Code System, in short, is called the NAICS code. Okay. So if you want to Google what is the code assigned to your business, you need to go to Dr. Google and ask NAICS code for a full service restaurant, for example, and boom, it will pop your number. Or you can Google NAICS code for a limited service restaurant. Limited service means that you're serving food but not liquor. Okay, that's limited. Or any other industry. Just Google NAICS code for any industry, the industry that you're in, and put a number here. The business EIN number for a sole proprietor will be a social security number or a TIN number. Any number that you apply with for the PPP goes here. The business phone number, a primary contact, and the email address. So if you change your email address, please do not use that email address. Use the email address that you have been communicating with the SBA. So you have to click here if you're applying for the first time forgiveness, first row of forgiveness, or the second row of forgiveness, but you cannot click both, okay? And the application would not allow you anyway, okay? You have to be able to get to know your SBA PPP loan number and the lender loan number, two different numbers. If you don't know, if you have only the lender's PPP loan number, please call Elaine, okay? She will be able to get it for you, okay? Because it's a number totally different. And believe me, my clients one by one, or call the SBA, they will give you that number. One by one, I have been calling and getting those numbers for them because this can be a reason for delay, or it can lead to problems, right? You have to put the exact amount that was deposited in your account. And since I mentioned was deposited in your account, then you go back to bank statement and get the date and the exact amount. How many employees did you apply for? And how many employees do you have now? And what cover period are you using? Then, so this is very important, and I think I already mentioned. So if you have received first draw PPP of more than $2 million, for a second draw PPP more than $2 million, you need to click here. Why? Because automatically, whether you click it or not, you're gonna be subjected to an audit or to a review. Okay, so it is important that you be aware of that. So you list all the payments that you're gonna deduct and all the payments that you have. You can back it up with receipts. Start putting it there, the full amount. And this is pretty much what you have to do. Some attestations, signature, your title, and demographics. So now this is important. You have to say who you are. If you're a veteran, say it, but clicking that you are a veteran. And number 2, or if you're not a veteran, you have never served to the United States in war, you need to click number 1.
Excuse me, Glamis, can I ask you a quick question? Someone in the chat had put a question. They asked, are trash collections and sewage considered utilities that are covered under the PPP?
Trash collections, absolutely. That is janitorial expenses, and that is operation expenses, yes.
Thanks.
And great questions, because that can amount to a good number.
Absolutely.
So here, before you submit this application, if you choose to do this application, this form, you need to select these 2 boxes here, okay? You can, and this is to prove that you have not reduced the amount of the number of employees, or your payroll was not reduced for more than 25%. And then you have some instructions here. Go revisit the instructions, have to do this before you submit it, and you will be okay. And you will be able to have all the money forgiven. And that's the end of this application.
Gladys had mentioned that if you had a question finding out what your SBA loan number is, you could contact me. My information is in the chat with my telephone number and everything, so shouldn't have a problem with that.
So I'm gonna put the form 3508EZ in the chat, so you have it.
You can pull that form from the SBA website and the Treasury website as well. So she's putting it in the chat for you.
All right, so that's done. Now I'm gonna go back to the PowerPoint.
You have 15 minutes, Gladys.
Okay, and we go to form 3508S. Who can use this form? And if the loan amount is less than $150,000. Okay, so I'm gonna go to this one. S means for short, okay? It's not special, it's not S for Schedule S or corporations. It doesn't have anything to do with that. It's just, this is the easy form, okay? This is the easy form. This is the information and the PPP number and the amount spent on payroll and the requested amount to be forgiven. Simple. Sign it and send it. This is the easy application.
Lamis,
So-
a quick question. When are the applications going to be open for people to submit the applications?
It depends on your lender, okay? You already have more or less the timeline, right? If 10 months have passed already since you got your first PPP, it's time for you to start working on and calling your lender. If your lender is one of those tech applications that pop all over, please call Elaine, because more likely your loans have been sold already and they're being forgiven by a different bank. So you need to be very proactive to try to find out this. If you have questions, for example, if you have filed your PPP application with Credit Karma, send me an email. I will forward all the information that you need. I'm sorry, you need to have in order to have to get a hold of people in credit and is it Cabbage, okay, and not Credit Karma. Cabbage. So I'm gonna just post in the chat and stop sharing this screen now.
We have a few questions in the chat, so we wanted to know, well, as you're doing that, I guess I can ask one of the questions. As it pertains to a home office, can a person deduct all their home utilities or just a percentage of the utilities for a home office?
If you're filing the sole proprietor application, you're allowed to do all the whole utilities, yeah.
Okay.
And also rent.
And is this the application form a standard form, or will each bank have like a different version of the form?
No, it's a standard form. Sorry. Okay, this is the last one, okay? The 3508 form. Who can use this form? This is the long form now, okay? This form is for businesses who have a lot of employees, have a health insurance, have employee benefits, and have all those beautiful things for the employee. This form has the PPP Schedule A, the worksheet, and also demographics. This is the long form. Now, I'm gonna see if I have time to give you a treat, maybe. If you email me, if this is your case, I will send you a spreadsheet that you're gonna do your numbers first, and then you're gonna bring it to the application, and it's gonna be super easy for you to do these numbers, okay? So I'm gonna go to the application now. So this is the application. And again, first part, you already know. Second part, you already know. Third part, forgiveness calculations, as you see, is more involved. It has some mathematics that you have to do, some percentages, but it's not that if you pay attention and really carefully, you might need the assistance of your accountant for this, or send me an email. I will send you this spreadsheet for to help you. You only have to plug entire numbers, and the spreadsheet will do the calculation for you and pretty much show up this application in the first page, and it will make your life easier.
Quick question, Glamis. Someone wanted to know that will perishable food be considered covered supplies cost, operation expenses, or are they counted?
Okay, so perishable food, you're gonna have to put it in bad debt or something like that, or offset as any other expenses. Yeah, I don't know how your accountant or you categorize the perishable foods. I don't know. But if you have to pay for that to your vendor, then it's a vendor's expense. But you can do both, okay? You can pay your vendor, justify with the bill, and then also claim it as donation or things like that. No double dipping is allowed. That's why for bigger businesses, there will be audited. There will be a full review. So then here you have the disclaimers and you have the Schedule A, and then you have the worksheet. Here you have to name and list all the information for every employee, all the information for the owners or partners, and percentages and cash compensation and all that. How much did you borrow, and the demographics page. If you feel frustrated doing this, always go back and go to the last page. Every page has an instructions page, so you can use that also as a guide if what I'm saying is not enough, okay? But it gives you step by step how can you do this. So that is pretty much all my pages here, and I'm gonna go back to the PowerPoint now.
I have a question in this chat. This individual asked this question twice, I'm sorry. If you start a new business in 2021 and was denied an SBA loan, I guess, do you have any options? I'm not seeing the connection
Okay,
here.
so if you started your business in 2020, and
21.
And you didn't qualify for a PPP,
Absolutely.
first draw or second draw. So
Right.
this is not for you. For you, we had and ended the RRF if you were a restaurant. Now, the only thing that is going on right now as for money for businesses is the New York State cover COVID pandemic relief grant, okay? And that is, the minimum that you can get is $5,000 and the maximum you can get is $50,000. You can just Google New York State COVID pandemic relief grant, okay? And apply for it. It's very easy. I have done a few applications for my clients, and that's the only thing that is going on. But the trick with this grant right now is that you have to be able to prove that you have been in business, you were in business in 2019, and that you claim at least $1 net profit. So if you claim a loss during when you file taxes for 2019, don't even waste your time. There is no any consideration for this. At least $1 net income you can apply. That's the only trick with this grant. All right, so this is my last slide. Copy my email in case you have questions or anything. I'm going to stop sharing now and open for a couple of questions.
I will be sending the recording when it's processed via a thank you email after the event. Glamis, will you be able to share the slides with me so that I can send them out to the people who registered?
No, Columbia never shared the slides. You have the slides in the presentation. So
then it'll be in the recording.
Exactly, yeah, please include me in the recording. I would like to hear myself. Okay, so questions?
I just want to make clear to everyone that's on the PPP forgiveness workshop that you have to ask to be forgiven in order to be forgiven. There are a lot of people running around with these PPP loans and they are acting as if they don't know that they must ask for forgiveness. It's not with the SBA that you ask for this forgiveness. It must be with the person that gave you the loan. So all of those forms that Glamis was talking about, those forms are not filed with us. Those forms are filed with whomever the lender was that gave you the money. So that is the person that you're dealing with. And the relationship with the lender that gave you the money is with the SBA. There was a chart or a thing that she put up and she explained that you file with the lender, The lender has so many days, then it comes to the SBA. Then we send back to the lender those 4 reasons that she said, fully forgiven, partially forgiven, forgiven with, I forgot what that word was that she used, denied, or denied with prejudice. Those are your selections that the lender has. So don't get it twisted. And did you go over, Glamis, the amount of time that a person have? Because I thought maybe I saw that question in the chat. How long should it take for a person to ask for this forgiveness? I think you mentioned it, but if you can mention it again.
I mentioned, so from the time you submit the application, it will take until the SB receives your request to be forgiven is 60 days. Okay, and then by SBA will take an additional, a total of 90 days is the process. So you submit application up with all the proof of the expenses to the lender. From that date, the 90 days start counting. Okay, so you won't see what's going on in between. You will see only transactions and communications between the lender, the one who gave you the money, and the SBA. And then after 90 days, I will give another extra week, you will hear from the lender, okay? And what you will hear from the lender is a notice. I have seen those notices because my clients have shown it to me. And they say that the lender has approved your request in full, meaning that what started as a loan, as a PPP loan, now it has changed into a grant, okay, or has been forgiven. And you can be approved in part, and you're gonna be approved in part only if you're not able to justify the expenses that you have listed, and denied if you have not been able to justify any of the expenses that are listed, and denied without prejudice, which I don't have a clear knowledge about how this is gonna play out. I have not seen anybody bringing me this notice yet. So we're still learning. And the thing that I didn't mention, the full package that you send it to the lender, you need to keep it at least for 7 years. The regulation, the SBA regulation says keep it for 4 years, because what you're saying to the SBA, which is the federal government, talked and connects with the IRS, which is the other body of the federal government. They talk to each other. I will say save it for 7 years, okay, or more. And keep it in a safe place, in the cloud. And even if you are out of business, God forbid, keep those documents in a safe place.
Also, Glamis, I want to ask you, if a person is on this line and listening to this workshop at this time, and they don't know if they're doing something right concerning the completion of the 3508 SEZ and the 3508, can they contact you at Columbia for assistance?
Absolutely.
So there's no need to worry. Glamis is here.
There is no need to worry, exactly. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put the link where you can submit requests for consultation. Or you can email me directly, because there is, when you submit a request for consultation, what's gonna happen is that the state website is gonna send you to the place that you are, the business is located. So more likely you will end up in Pace University or Baruch College, or if you're in Brooklyn, you will go to Brooklyn or Bronx or any other place. But if you insist on working with me, which I would love it, I mean, I'm definitely not looking for clients, I have plenty, but if you think that I can be of a good assistance to you, I can definitely talk to you and guide you in the process. You have my email, you have Elaine's email, just feel free to reach out. You are not alone on this one, and the goal is to get all this money forgiven.
And the services are free. because they've already been paid for by the United States government. We have, as Glamis said, we have 3 small business development centers in Manhattan. One is at Pace, one is at Baruch, and the other is at Columbia. We have Lehman College in the Bronx. We have LaGuardia in Queens, York College in Queens. We have College of Staten Island on Staten Island. We have 2 out on Long Island, which is Farmingdale, and we have Stony Brook. And I think, did I miss a borough? I don't think I missed a borough because all the boroughs have a small business development center. If you're in a borough that I didn't call, you can give me a call. My telephone number and email is there. And you can reach out to what we call our resource partners, and they will be glad to help you complete that application to make sure that it is correct. She made a very powerful statement in that the information that you put on the initial PPP application is being tracked in the PPP forgiveness. Don't change this information because it's just going to delay the process. Whatever you put down, it has to be consistent in all of these applications. That is so important. Don't go changing nothing now. If your PPP application had a NICS code on it, don't go changing the NICS code to something else in the forgiveness. It's just going to create a problem. So, like I said, if you have any questions or you have any problems completing that, you can reach out to Glamis or any of our other resource partners at the SBA, or you can give me a call either way. We are here to help. That's what we're here for. But please don't let this loan become a loan when you can make it become a grant. That is the key thing from this whole entire workshop. And we again thank the Greenwich Village Chelsea Chamber for putting this on so that you don't have to have a loan on your books. You can get a grant.
So contact information for both presenters has been shared. If you do not know how to save your chat, at the bottom underneath your chat where it says file and the 3 little dots, you're able to save the chat so you can copy and paste everything that was dropped into the chat while we were speaking. There's one last question. I know you have to hop off. The last question that I see here is that the person, we realize that it's 60% payroll, 40% non-payroll. If you submit paperwork that shows more than 60%, but you also submit paperwork that shows 40% of non, is it going to be an issue and confuse matters? Like, if you can read the question specifically, if you submit if you have $100,000 loans and you submit $70,000 in payroll costs, but you also do $40,000 in non-payroll costs, is that valid, or will that confuse things?
Yeah, but that is valid, but again, don't submit more than the 40% because nothing is going to happen. It's not like they're going to give you extra money or so. 70%, 70,000 plus 40 will be 110,000. And if the loan was only 100, there is no reason why you should submit extra or additional expenses.
And
now, keep in mind that we don't know yet how this is going to play out when you file taxes down the road for 2021. Is this going to be considered income? I don't know. We don't know. I don't know. If you know, Elaine, please let me know.
It will not. It will not.
It will not be considered income. So how this is going to show up in your books and how this is going to disappear in your books, that's an accounting question. I don't know. Hopefully you have a magician accountant like most of my clients have that make profits disappears and income disappear. So it will be like, it came and it went. So you shouldn't have any problem about that.
And also, if you made a PPP 1 draw and a PPP 2 draw, do not combine them on your form. They must be filed separately with the consistent information.
Exactly. So Elaine, the other thing that I will add to that is that you cannot submit a second draw PPP forgiveness if you haven't have your first draw forgiven yet. So first you have your first draw forgiven, and then you can apply for your second draw.
Someone is talking about being muted. I don't know who that was in the chat. I didn't, if you could check, I can, Oh, someone said something about they can answer some question. They are muted or something. I
Oh,
don't know.
yeah, we have a CPA that wants to help
To say something?
illustrating the comment that I just made.
Chris is there. I think this is Chris. Yes?
Yes, I'm here. I can answer that question in reference to how you treat the books and records. For the record, I'm also, besides a CPA and a practitioner, I'm an adjunct professor at NYU. Prior, I was with St. John's, and many, many years ago at the New York Institute of Technology as well, teaching taxation, individual, and also corporate.
And a
So
member
the
of
answer to the question as to how the loan is treated, for as long as it's not forgiven, is treated as a liability, like a regular loan. Since it's the amount, and I'll give an example so for everybody to understand, if $100,000, for example, is the PPP amount, and the whole thing is forgiven, when eventually you know it's forgiven, and that's going to be in 2021, then at the end of 2021, the loan, the liability is adjusted into the retained earnings. It doesn't go into the income at all. If partially is forgiven, let's say out of $100,000, it's only $80,000 forgiven. The $20,000 remains as a loan, and the $80,000 will be adjusted in the retained earnings of the corporation or the LLC, or if you are an individual, in the records of the individual. But it's not going to be taxable.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the clarification. I really am very good with financials, but for the accounting, for these specifics, I didn't know how to treat it. I knew that far that it was a liability, and once you get it forgiven, is a grant, so it goes to a retained earnings.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
I'm gonna get your email address, so don't stay there. KCS Kivas.
If he's in the chat and you copied the chat, Glamis, it'll be there too. Am I right, Maria?
Yeah, and I can also share it if sometimes something goes wrong. Chris is a member of the chamber, so I want to also thank all the members of the chamber that are here on the call. If anybody needs to reach out to members of the chamber, please do send me an email and I'll do a connection. But Chris's contact.
Also, anybody who wants a little bit further information in reference to accounting, feel free to copy my email and send an email.
Thank you. I will definitely do that.
This question that we just dealt with here was a major question with a lot of small businesses that got the PPP, because they was like, okay, I got this money. Am I claiming this as income? We were like, okay, we got to deal with the IRS first before we can make the decision. So the SBA and the IRS got together, and it didn't make sense to give you on one hand and take on the other. So that's how we came to that resolution.
Well, I have to state that this amount was like a double gift, I would say, because
it's true.
In reality, it's income for every corporation, right? Then it allows you to take the income, and it should have been offset, or at least recorded as income and take the expenses as an expense. Not only the government was gracious to give it to you, but also says, don't record it as income, take the expenses, which I tell you the truth, speaking with all the accountants originally before everything was really cleared all the way, you were surprised to see it, like, as we call it, double whammy.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because you get the income and you get the expenses, so it's like double the gift.
And Chris, do you have any knowledge, for example, when you file and you, if you decide to take the 8-week pay period or the 24-week pay period, when you file taxes, is that going to be, that cover period is going to be considered an expense to the business, or do you have to add it as an expense, or you have to take it away? Because in
Okay.
reality, it's not an expense that came up from your revenues. It came from a grant.
Okay, it doesn't matter. The expense are considered expenses because the government says you are allowed to take the expense. So basically, the only thing that you maneuver in the records is the PPP amount. And basically, up until it's forgiven, it's called a PPP loan. Now, the moment it's forgiven, then you don't put it as income, but you treat it and you make adjustment on what we call retained earnings. So it avoids going through the taxation.
Okay. Very good.
But to answer quite your question, it doesn't matter on the expenses. The expenses remain expenses because there's no distinction on the expenses.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any final questions? Any questions that were not answered, just drop it in the chat, copy and paste it again. I don't see anything. There were some questions that were not clear. I don't think there's anything else. No?
Okay.
Okay.
Great, because I have to go now,
Yes.
and it has been great to be here, and hopefully I hear back from you if you have any additional questions.
Wonderful. So thank you all for joining us. If you have any questions on the chamber, please do reach out to me. Any questions on SBA matters, reach out to the contacts that have been provided. If nothing else, have a wonderful day. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great one.
Bye.